Hello, my name is Jean Budd, and I'm with the Center for Autism and Early Childhood Mental Health. This is our webinar series named Regulating, Relating, Caring, and Learning. And today's topic that I'll be sharing with you is developing resilience using the beginning, middle, and end approach. These videos are about 20 minutes in length, and it's part of our response at the center to the COVID-19 pandemic. We are founded in our center's philosophy in the belief that emotional and relational well-being is critical to developmental and educational progress. So resilience is the ability to problem solve in the face of adversity, and we certainly are in adverse times. It is not typically a skill that is delivered by genetics. It can be learned from others. However, it is the sum of all of our experiences and interactions that enable us to build a resilience at some level or another. There's individual resilience and there is collective resilience. We know from history that some unimaginable stress and crisis lead individuals to collectively build a communal resilience, as has been witnessed by the Holocaust victims. Resilience can be developed through skills development. We're going to look at how children learn social skills and apply that method to building our own resilience in the face of this pandemic. So it's not a solitary accomplishment. Resilience grows within the relationships that are nurturing for us, and it is learned and it's strengthened as those relationships develop. We are in a time where there has been no precedence for the experience that we have. Dr. Stuart Shanker at the Merit Center labeled this time as one of the most important lessons that we can learn from all of this is that the future is never written. So the pyramid model is the source that gives us the stages of learning approach, which is framed within the concept of everything having a beginning, a middle, and an end. If we think about our daily lives, our lives can be very ordered, from sharing a meal together, to waking up in the morning, to attending social gatherings such as weddings and funerals, birthday celebrations. We enter into each one of those events that may be unique and feeling a bit anxious or nervous, not knowing what is expected of us. Children do this when they enter into social interactions. And if we consider when they enter a school program or they're in the classroom, in the beginning, they look around, they're going to gather some information from the actions and what's offered to them from the adults. They will watch how skills are demonstrated and use all manners of expression to test out these new skills. We might be thinking of such things as taking turns, as learning how to invite a friend to play, as transitioning from one activity to another, or following instructions. So it's explained to the children what is expected, and then they start to test it out and provide feedback about how this feels for them. Then, in the middle, or as the skill is being practiced, this is the time that it's reinforced by the adults in the children's lives. This is the time where they can make mistakes. They are available for redirection, for some additional practice to try it multiple times, make those adjustments. And what's critical about this time period is that feedback is sought. How is this working for you? How does this feel? Let's adapt it a little bit to your learning manner, or we'll wait until you feel that this is something that you feel you have accomplished. So we offer patience and tolerance. And we don't want to forget the end or the celebration. Yes, we got it. We acknowledge that this skill has been mastered. And we even look to it as a mastery. And we just don't stop at the end and say, high five, you've learned how to do this. We won't talk about it again. We integrate it into the lives of the children, and we ask them to teach others. And in that way, they become confident and competent. So let us turn our thoughts to where we are now in COVID-19. We are beginning to experience the need for new skills. How will we face reopening of a child care center? How will we proceed in supporting families and children, in providing them physical and emotional safety? Well, in the beginning of the learned approach, we're going to check the status of the adults, because we know we're going to all have a certain level of anxiety, and checking where teachers are and staff are and parents are is going to be important in to know how to support them through this process so they can become masters of new skills. So applying this to the adults or the individuals who will be the co-regulators for the children. In other words, we need to take the temperature of the adults in the very beginning of this first time experience. What are they identifying in their self-awareness as to how this feels? What is their level of anxiety? And how are we going to be able to support them in diminishing the levels of anxiety so that they can access their calm? Well, we're going to talk about what the process will look like, what it's going to feel like. This might be greeting the families at arrival time. This might be setting up the classrooms so that children can move about the classroom and staff as well in a healthy and safe manner. It might be creating new play opportunities that are social distanced. Whatever it might be, we are going to look at ways not only to communicate it verbally, but to use visual prompts, to use practice, to use role playing. And we're going to set the first draft, if you will, in what that skill may look like as we proceed on into the following weeks. So the first week or two, it's the beginning phase of our journey to resilience. Now, the middle phase is when we adults often become complacent. You know, things are going okay. It's not always great. Well, the middle part of this approach is where we test the process and make adaptations. Don't be afraid to make changes in whatever schedule and procedures and routines that you've established. Make sure that you are conducting yourselves in the best way that's comfortable for you and the others on your team, as well as the families. We're going to adjust ourselves to meet the needs of everyone and allow room for mistakes. When I talk about this now in the face of COVID, I'm thinking about the many adults who've said to me, I don't want to do anything wrong and hug a child. Well, in the heat of the moment when a child needs our concern and our comfort, I don't want you to consider it a mistake to provide a hug. What we will do is look at that time and adjust ourselves so that we can be the best source of nurture for the child or children in our care. We are going to be comfortable during this middle period that those around us aren't judging us, and we're not judging the children. We're allowing ourselves time to feel familiar and comfortable so that much of these activities become instinctual, and we work together. Another critical part of this middle phase is getting feedback, having reflective check-ins with yourself, with the staff, your team, directors. Carve out space daily in these next 2, 3, 4 weeks of making sure that what you have in place is operating to the optimal level. And then don't forget the end. And this is where we humans seem to rush through, and we don't allow ourselves to wrap up the experience feeling competent and being comfortable with the process, acknowledging our confidence, sharing it with others. I mentioned in the beginning when I talked about the stages of learning as outlined by the pyramid model for children to learn social skills, that end, that celebration is so important to say, "Attaway, you've done it." But we're not going to stop there either. We don't forget about that skill. We notice it as it comes up in other areas of our experiences. For example, if children are learning to take turns, if they take turns during our circle time when we're modeling that skill, and then during free play, we catch them using that skill, we notice it. So for we adults, learning how to be resilient, using this process of beginning, middle, and end, we are all going to notice in others when they accomplish something with confidence, when they've done that skill in reintegrating back into the classroom, and we reward it in some way. We acknowledge that achievement. Directors, maybe you have an end of the week praise session. Let's notice what went right. Because as we develop these layers of mastering skills, we are further along the road to becoming resilient. I want to mention that during the beginning, I said we need to check where we are with our anxiety and how we are feeling. I offer this resource, Psychological First Aid, and it can be found at this website. It's often used by the Red Cross in events that cause tragedy or trauma. The 5 steps to psychological first aid are this. We ask if the person feels safe and secure physically, but emotionally as well. Let's talk about what's making you anxious. What are some of the things that you're thinking about? Because anxiety is a contagious emotion. And if one person is feeling extremely anxious, it's going to spread like wildfire through your center or your organization. So we want to measure that, and we also want to regulate. We are the co-regulators. Regulate our response to provide calm. Calm is also a contagion. So others will feel our calm, tap into it, we'll lend it to them, and the climate within your center will begin to balance out, and through the mindfulness and empathy where we identify in others, you've got this. In the past, I've seen your resilience. You were the one who was able to help us get through that former challenge, or we as a group, remember I said individual and collective competency can be noticed, and the history of that can be tapped into. So we use our nurture. We make connections, we strengthen the connections that we have, and we provide hope. We're going to be able to do this together, and I've got your back. And as I mentioned, it's that middle time when we get tired, we become weary of going through the day-to-day process, making sure that everyone is okay. So here's where we need to keep alert and test the process, make adaptations, become fluent in the process, see who your leaders are in coming back and reopening, and have them be the cheerleader for others. Have them be the noticing agent. We adjust steps to meet everyone's needs. Maybe someone is not equipped to be out in front of the building, receiving the children, asking the questions, taking the temperatures. That's fine. There are other responsibilities that may better suit that individual. Expect mistakes, support, and move through them just as a child would spill milk. We gather together and help to clean it up, right? And we encourage that persistence, that this is the important work, and we're almost to the competence, to the space where we can celebrate that resilience. We're comfortable. Everyone has adjusted. The children are very comfortable with being cared for by adults with masks on. They're very comfortable with a lot of outdoor play, or maybe social distanced play, or sensory play that's a little bit different than it had been. So we're maintaining the process, we're celebrating accomplishments, and we're feeling rewarded by knowing that we have developed a skill or skills that will help us with the next challenge. Because remember, it's not about the mere accomplishment, it's about sustaining these skills. So asking for feedback and adjusting and regrouping will always be part of the process. So when you have the changes in your arrival times and your free play and washing hands and lining up and picking up and having those proper reunions or proper goodbyes as you say farewell to the children for the day, you can use the beginning, middle, and end to reinforce and advance the skills so that children are feeling competent, your staff is feeling competent in the skills that they've developed, and you are prepared to meet any skill that might come your way as necessary as this ever-changing world that we are now in approaches us. Thank you. The Center for Autism and Early Childhood Mental Health has a number of programs available to you. Thank you for spending this time with me.